they're kind of like investigating this cave a little bit, and then this family of trolls like comes back and they have to hide from them. And it's actually a pretty suspenseful moment. But it's also like a moment of humor because then I think one of the trolls farts and like all the characters is like nearly throwing up and they're like right behind this troll and like trying to stay hidden. So that was kind of a nice moment of gross out but still funny humor.
Hello and welcome to Camp Kaiju Monster Movie Podcast. We are your hosts, Vincent Hannum
And Matt Levine.
And we're talking about all of our favorite monster movies, the good, the bad, and the downright campy, and asking if they stand the test of time.
Traditional kaiju, creature features, space invaders, the supernatural, and everything in between. All strange beasts welcome here.
Camp Kaiju is brought to you by Zach Linder and the Zach Pack, powered by Coldwell Banker Realty. Whether you're looking for your dream home, a savvy investment property, or expert guidance in home rehab and flipping, the Zach Pack has you covered. Check the link in the show notes for more information. Matt, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Vincent?
Not bad. I am excited to talk about this Norwegian kaiju film called Troll Hunter.
Yeah, it's been on my radar ever since it first came out about 16 years ago, but I just haven't caught up with it until now.
Matt, I want to know what's going on with creature features, if you're at liberty to say. If not,
Yeah, well,
I can cut all this out, but friend to friend, I want to know what's going on.
yeah, for sure. I think the thing that you can air, you can publicize if you want, is that the first screening in our Creature Features series at the Heights most likely will be Piranha in early May. So it still won't be for a little while. You know, the nature of theatrical exhibition is we do our schedule months out in advance, and you have to get the rights in either a film print or a DCP, so it still won't be for a while. But yeah, Piranha should be playing at the Heights in early May. The rest of the things I'm about to say you probably should not put on the episode yet, but most likely, but nothing is finalized yet. They're trying to get Piranha scheduled, so that one is like fairly set in stone, I would say.
That is so unbelievably cool. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun, yeah.
This is at the Heights Theater, everybody, in Minneapolis, and stay tuned. Camp Kaiju could be representing some classic creature features.
Yeah, and again, Piranha's probably the only one we can say for sure right now, but hopefully we'll have some other titles and showtimes in the near future.
Definitely. Well, just a couple other quick nuts and bolts, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us, friends. Please rate and review this show and follow us on patreon.com/Camp Kaiju for additional videos, reviews, merchandise, and more. Other ways you can get in touch are through our email at campkaiju@gmail.com, campkaijupodcast.com, Instagram, and our voicemail number 612-470-2612. A special thank you to our current Patreon members. You know who you are. We love you and thank you. Jason, Chris, Sean, Peggy, our anonymous patron, Don, Steffi, and Jim Cheney. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
Well, everybody, some people have died recently, and we haven't given them their due. Only one of these people died recently, Catherine O'Hara. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I can't believe we haven't talked about her. Yeah, I mean, amazing comedic actress. You know, she was in some monster movies. Beetlejuice, I think you could say, is a monster movie. And of course, so many great comedies as well. She's a legend. Rest in peace.
Honestly. And then, not recently, but in the past year, you remember who Jimmy Hunt is?
I don't recognize that name, but you have a note here that he was in Invaders from Mars.
He was the boy,
Okay.
the lead role.
I was wondering if that was the case. Do you know if
Yeah.
he had like a long acting career after that?
I don't think he did. I think Invaders from Mars was still his best known work, but he died only 2 months after we recorded that episode.
Hmm.
So, rest in peace, Jimmy Hunt.
Yeah, I feel bad though. I mean, I was not aware of that. I did not make that connection, but I like Invaders from Mars a lot. And I think, he gives a good child performance. So rest in peace, Jimmy Hunt.
Definitely. And not dead, very important. Bruce Campbell does have cancer, but he is still alive. That's just some monster movie news that I just felt like, hey, Bruce, if you're out there, stay strong. You are a legend.
Yes, yeah. We're, hopefully he is staying strong. I'm sure so many fans throughout the world are thinking about him. I mean, I feel like there have been a lot recently. Of course, there are always a lot of celebrities and important figures who we lose. It's seemingly too early, but Robert Duvall also we lost recently. Jesse Jackson, not from film, but James Van Der Beek. So yeah, a lot of people.
I know. It was like a wave, but we can talk about this month in monster movie history. Well, because I was just talking about Mr. Bruce Campbell, I'm going to shout out Evil Dead 2, released in March of 1987. I think that movie is a horror comedy classic. And we have not covered an Evil Dead, a Sam Raimi, or a Bruce Campbell film on this podcast. Well, we did do an Evil Dead, but not one of the classic ones. My point is long overdue, but what are you going to do? So, Evil Dead 2, check it out if you haven't.
My favorite Evil Dead movie, like you just said, one of my favorite horror comedies of all time. The style in that movie, like it's just turned up to 11 the entire time, like for an hour and a half. Love that movie. Sam Raimi, like, at least in that era, he's made some good movies since then too, but like in the 80s, just like incredible. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good choice. I think the one that I'm going to shout out, I might have talked about it on the podcast before, but I'm going to say Leviathan from 1989. Really great monster movie directed by George P. Cosmatos, who also directed Tombstone, First Blood Part 2. Whether or not those are good or bad things, that's up to you. He also directed Of Unknown Origin, which we have covered in the podcast before.
That's right.
But Leviathan, a really fun monster movie. Peter Weller is in that one. I hope to actually do an episode on that someday because that's a very underrated 80s horror monster movie.
I think there is a lot to love and a lot to pick apart.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever bad. I think it's unintentional. I think it's so bad it's good some at parts.
Yeah. I think that's true, but like the practical effects are really mind-blowing. They're great.
Yeah. Stan Winston, I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's one I would recommend to people because it's just a blast.
Yeah, totally.
New and upcoming releases. Have you heard of this movie called Iron Lung?
Yeah, I actually saw a little bit of it because we played it at the Heights for like 2 days. It was a very brief run that we had there. So saw a little bit of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I maybe you know more about it than I do. I just it's like space adventure. Maybe there's a planet with an ocean of blood and there's a submersible. Honestly, I didn't do too much digging into it, but that alone hooked me.
Yeah. Well, that might be the extent of the plot. Like from what I've read and what I could tell, it's very not plot driven and it's very much about like atmosphere and like really abstract visuals. And I tend to like that sort of thing. It's based on a video game. I've never played the video game before, but yeah, it looked cool. I don't know if it all holds together as a movie, but definitely some incredible visuals.
Cool. I
Yeah.
think it has the record for the most the most fake blood used in a movie now.
I did read that, yeah. And from the brief scene that I saw, I can understand why. There are like pools of blood, like human beings just dripping in fake blood, presumably fake blood. Yeah,
You never can tell.
true. Maybe they went for 100% realism. I hope not, but maybe.
They went to the blood bank. We'll get to Troll Hunters soon, folks, I promise. But I want to correct it. I'm gonna go back and re-review a movie from this current season.
Hmm.
It's the first time I've done it, but I figured it keeps gnawing at me, so I have to listen to that. I feel in hindsight, I was unjustifiably hard on Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2.
Hmm.
I said it has some fun moments but does not stand the test of time. It's been 2 months, and I'm like, no, it does stand the test of time, despite some stilted elements. So I'm officially bumping up my rating for that movie.
I'm really happy to hear that. I like that movie a lot.
But what's coming up on Camp Kaiju Monster Movie Podcast?
On our next episode, we are going to be talking about At Midnight, I'll Take Your Soul. That's a Brazilian horror movie from the late 60s. Frank Olson is going to be joining us on that episode. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. There's a famous horror character named Coffin Joe who's introduced in that movie and then reappeared in a lot of Brazilian horror movies after that. So, yeah, excited to revisit that one.
Yeah, you had me at Coffin Joe
Yeah, great name.
and Frank Olson.
Yes,
That's
can't wait.
great. And then following At Midnight, I'll Take Your Soul. We are going to talk about the 1957 stop motion giant monster movie called The Black Scorpion. And these effects are brought to you not by Ray Harryhausen, but his mentor, Willis O'Brien, most known for King Kong. So King Kong was 1933, Black Scorpion is 1957. Willis O'Brien died in 61, 62. So a late work from a master of his craft. So I'm excited to watch that movie and to show that one to you and all you listening.
I'm really excited for that. Yeah, I have nothing more to say about it, but like Willis O'Brien, one of the best, and like I love that period of monster movies. I know I was, pretty hard on it. It Came from Beneath the Sea, but I love them. I love Invaders from Mars. So yeah, looking forward to that one.
Oh yeah. So I think the time has come to to get your UV light gun to rub some troll piss all over your body. Let's go hunting trolls.
Yeah, it looked kind of fun. I would do it.
What's your personal history with this movie?
Pretty much none. Like I know when it came out again in 2010, I had heard of it because it got good reviews and it was a low budget, like fake found footage mockumentary horror movie with obviously the title Troll Hunter. So I was intrigued by it, but there were just always like other movies that kind of took precedence for me, so I haven't seen it until today.
Nice. I was in college in 2010. I know I saw it around that time. I don't remember. There was so much of this movie I didn't remember upon revisiting, but I always knew I liked it, and it was a really fun rewatch. So I'm excited to dig into it. Yeah, and excited to hear what you think too, because this movie is a little different in its visual form and aesthetic.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole time I was like, man, what's Matt gonna think of this one?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you think as well. And I think the only other like fake found footage movie that we've talked about so far is Cloverfield, right? That I
Yeah,
can remember. Yeah. So
yeah,
maybe there will be some similar talking points that we talked about with that movie.
that's right. Yeah, good point. That was 2008. So maybe there was, I don't know. I was Paranormal Activity around that time. That's not a mockumentary, but it's a found footage type of movie too.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that was around that time. There's another movie called Rec, R-E-C, that I think was maybe around that time, maybe a little bit later. So that probably was like the peak of that like mockumentary approach.
That style I feel like lends itself easily to social media viral marketing
Mhm.
online, which I know Cloverfield did intentionally tap into. YouTube was new. All this stuff was new on the internet.
Maybe the one that started it all, the Blair Witch Project, like did a similar thing 10 years earlier, you know, in 1999.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's great. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I have seen it a couple times and it holds up. It's still pretty scary, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Okay. I've seen so many horror movies that there's still a few. I feel like there's the ones that I think will scare me. They do stand out. Like the Blair Witch. I'm like, that's gonna scare me.
I will see. Maybe it won't, but it really sneaks up on you. And I won't give away any spoilers, but the last image of that movie is like one for the ages.
Woo!
Approximately 7 hours ago, something attacked the city.
On January 18th,
It's not! It's alive! It's huge!
What is it? Is it coming this way?
experience the event that will change everything
We get the hell out of Manhattan!
through the eyes of those
Did you see it?
who are there.
What was that?
Still filming? Yeah. People are gonna want to know how it all went down.
Cloverfield, rated PG-13.
This is my home, which I am leaving the comforts of for the weekend to explore the Blair Witch. I can see you.
I'm really excited about this. Thank you for
I'm
the
very
opportunity.
glad.
This area's been haunted by that old woman.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why you have to have every conversation on video.
Because we're making a documentary.
Not about us getting lost. We're making a documentary about a witch.
I
We're
don't.
lost? Admit that first.
No, I know we're not lost.
They're all over the place.
So how do we know it was people?
Well, even if it wasn't, I'm not going to play with that either.
And it's all because of me that we're here now. Hungry and cold and hunted. Just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom.
Tell me where you are, John!
4 years ago, in this quiet forest, in this cozy cabin, something happened. Something so frightening. Something so deadly. We prayed it would never happen again. Now, from the creator of Evil Dead, comes Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Now playing at a theater near you. Consult local listings.
We'll keep talking about that. We'll keep talking about other found footage monster movies. But first, we got to talk about the some of the crew and some of the cast of Troll Hunter. And my goodness gracious, apologies for the mispronunciations with these names. And Matt, we do have listeners in Norway. So thank you. I wish I knew how to say thank you in Norwegian, but don't hate us for mispronouncing the language of your country.
We'll do our best.
All right, so you go first.
Okay. So the writer and director of Troll Hunter is Andre Uvredal. This was a relatively early film for him. I think it was his second feature, if I remember right. So some other movies that he made include The Autopsy of Jane Doe from 2016, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark from 2019, and The Last Voyage of the Demeter from 2023. I have to admit, I haven't seen any of those. I've seen bits and pieces of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, but not the whole thing.
I didn't realize he was attached to that or The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I remember was kind of a big deal in Universal horror circles because it's a reimagining of a chapter of Dracula.
Yeah, I had high hopes for Demeter. I thought it was a pretty good trailer when that came out, but I never saw it. For like you said, it didn't get very good reviews, but time to revisit it maybe, or visit it for the first time, I should say.
Right. Cinematography in Troll Hunter is by Halvard Brine, and the film is edited by Per Erik Eriksen. And I think thank you in Norwegian is touch.
Touch. Nice. That's good to know.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Norwegians out there.
Sounds good to me. It sounds correct as far as I know, but yeah, touch to all of our Norwegian listeners.
Touch. Sorry, I'm playing back the Google translator. All right, we're moving on. The cast of Troll Hunter is headed up by Otto Jespersen, who plays Hans, the titular Troll Hunter. This guy, the character, Hans, is a rugged, no-nonsense survivalist and veteran who is now contracted by the government, the Norwegian government, to hunt trolls who have wandered off their perimeters. Jespersen, the actor, is a well-known comedian and television personality in Norway. However, he's a bit of a firebrand. His comedy lends itself to the controversial. Lots of anti-establishment type stuff. Like I read, he's well known for burning an American flag during the Iraq War, and some questionable anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish jokes and humor that I personally don't find funny, but that's his brand. And I'm certainly not here to defend any of that. Just want to put that out there. Put it all out there.
Yeah, I did a little more research on that because I read that in your notes and I was like, oh, is it maybe like it was a lot of controversy for nothing? But then I read more about what he did and said, and it's like, oh, that is pretty bad. Like, we don't need to talk about all that here, but his, like his appearance in the movie, and especially if audiences do know him as this kind of, comedian, which I didn't know him as before I watched the movie, but it does lend the character a certain sense of like, dry wit or whatever, and that probably helps the reception of the movie a little bit.
I agree. I do think his performance is very good at selling the character and selling the premise. So, yeah, I might talk more about the anti-religious stuff in this movie, but, being Jewish is more than just a religion, too. It's an ethnicity. So,
yeah,
it gets real dicey real quick when you're making such jokes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other main cast surrounding Hans, the troll hunter, is a group of student filmmakers. They are making this documentary. They've come across a kooky character, the Hans character, and his obsession with troll hunting, and the students absolutely do not believe this at first. But they think following him around would make a great documentary.
We have Thomas Ulf Larsen as Kalle, the cameraman of the documentary. It's later revealed that Thomas is a Christian, or actually Kalle, the character, is a Christian, and he consequently meets his demise at the hands of the Mountain Kings. The folklore or the background of this is that trolls supposedly can detect Christian blood. They can sniff out Christian blood. The character of Kalle hides the fact that he is a devout Christian, and it does not end well for him. So that character is played by Thomas Ulf Larsen. We also have Johanna Murk as Johanna, the sound person of the documentary. And then probably the main character of the trio of students, we have Glenn Erland Tosterud as Thomas, or Thomas maybe, the director of the documentary, who is clawed, Clawed, by an early troll attack, and later develops rabies.
Yeah, I mean, he was clawed.
He was clawed, and also Thomas.
I guess it's funny when you say it out loud.
Yeah, it's funny in my head, and I was like, I'm probably the only person who finds this funny, but that's where my mind goes.
And then another comedian, well-known actor for all you Norwegians out there, is Hans Morten Hansen, who plays Finn. And Finn is a government person. He's a governmental head of TSS, the Troll Security Service. And fun note, Hansen, the actor, in 2010 established the world record for longest stand-up performance.
I read that some other supporting characters were also played by comedians, like the head of the power plant is also a Norwegian comedian. And I don't really know a lot of the details about that, but, I can just imagine as a Norwegian audience member seeing this movie, it's probably a pretty big clue that it's meant to be taken partly as a comedy,
Yes, and the Polish bear hunter is also apparently a well-known Norwegian comedian.
Yeah, yep, I read that as well. Yeah, which is, kind of, it says a lot. And, many American audience members like myself probably wouldn't pick up on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mockumentaries make me think of Catherine O'Hara, who was in many from Christopher Guest, movies like Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, A Mighty Wind. Those movies have like blink and you miss it cameos from a lot of comedians. So just making connections.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's a good connection. And though, I mean, like, Best in Show is amazing. I really love that movie. She's so good in that.
I just watched it. Ellen and I revisited it. I think the night Catherine O'Hara died. My
Wow.
God, I was in stitches. I was just laughing, cackling with joy at so much of it.
Yeah. And I also think like those movies still have like some tenderness for a lot of those characters. You know, it's not just like total ridicule or like looking down on the characters, which is kind of a tough balance to pull off sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Before it becomes a Best in Show podcast, the production backstory of Troll Hunter. Now, the director, Andre Uverdahl, wanted to make, quote, a big Hollywood style movie about Norwegian culture. I got that from Gizmodo. There's a really cool article about the science of Troll Hunter. It's an interview with the director. I'll link that in the show notes. So I got a lot of information from that, and another interview from 2011 from a website called Hey You Guys. Anyways, Andre Uverdahl made a movie. He wanted to feature trolls from the stories and fairy tales of his youth. He spun this idea into a premise about a disgruntled troll hunter. And as he goes on to say, Uverdahl, he says it was very based in fairy tales. I didn't want to alienate the Norwegian audience with how I depict trolls on screen. I wanted it to feel very close to that because we were messing around with so much other stuff, with creating a mythology around them and putting it in real time. You know, now, as opposed to hundreds of years ago or whenever, it would be natural to tell a troll story. My biggest takeaway from that is here's a man, the director, steeped in like the historical culture of his country, of traditional storytelling, well, traditions. And I love that idea. I'm going to bring this into the modern world. You know, we're not going to sit around a campfire and tell troll stories, but we are going to sit around this medium of film and tell you a troll story. I just love that idea.
Yeah, I love that too. It makes me think about some of my favorite Japanese new wave horror movies. I know I talk a lot about Japanese movies on here, but you know, movies like Kwaidan and Onibaba and Jigoku, where it is taking like kind of historical folklore and traditions, and many of those are set in the past, so they're not really updated to like modern times in those cases. But I love it when you have like a distinct like national view of like a cultural past, a cultural heritage, and then that's turned into like a new kind of horror movie. I love that sort of thing.
Yeah. Filming for Troll Hunter took place in Western Norway, but the production was kept under wraps almost up until the release. But the title Troll Hunter always remained, and this seemed a little tongue-in-cheek to me. Andre Uverdahl didn't believe that audiences and critics would take that title so literally, and apparently he was right. Critics were like, okay, there's this movie coming out called Troll Hunter. There's no way. Nobody connected the dots that it would literally be about a man hunting trolls.
Yeah. It's right there in the title.
Yeah.
In a way, like I kind of feel like it might have been cool if that wasn't the title because, you know, the movie starts with like on-screen titles where it's like this footage was like recovered by a Norwegian like film studio or maybe TV station, and it's like, you know, it's all true to life. Like we don't know where this footage came from. So like if the title is Troll Hunter, you know it's going to be about hunting trolls, or at least you should probably know that, especially after reading reviews and stuff like that. But like if maybe the title was a little bit more cryptic, it might have been kind of a cool reveal the first time a troll is actually on screen, but that's all right. That's a different, you know, I'm just imagining what could have been. So there is another Gizmodo piece that's focused the science of the trolls is the name of the article, and I feel like that title is also meant a little bit tongue-in-cheek, the science of the trolls. But that goes a little bit more into the depictions of the trolls in the movie. Most of them were based on historical drawings and paintings. There are common troll descriptions from Norwegian folklore, which were used in the film that include trolls having a tail, multiple heads, the ability to smell a Christian's blood, like we were talking about before, eating rocks, but loving meat, and sometimes being man-eaters. The trolls in Norwegian folklore are also described as big, old, and strong, but also slow and dim witted, turning to stone when exposed to sunlight. And that last plot point is actually a pretty major part in the film, as Hans uses UV light to kill the trolls, either by turning them to stone or in some cases just making them explode, which is one of the more fun, gory parts of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You even have a troll hiding underneath a bridge, which maybe that element is like well known to pretty much any viewer, I would say. And then the last little bit here, the depiction of the trolls from Troll Hunter is also based on some popular stories, like The Boy Who Had an Eating Match with a Troll and The Three Billy Goats Gruff, which has also become popular outside of Norway as well.
It's one of my favorite stories.
Hmm.
And I don't read it too much anymore to my kiddo, but she still has it. And she's gone through a phase where she was requesting it. So yeah, I was being very familiar with that story. I really found it delightful when Hans the Troll Hunter brought three goats out onto a bridge to lure the troll.
Yeah, that's a good scene. And Hans is he's wearing kind of like a suit of armor that seems to be cobbled together from scraps of metal, basically. Yeah. That whole scene is pretty funny. I like that one.
How did he survive the hit he took?
Yeah, I mean, most of the CGI or most of the visual effects, some of them anyway, are pretty decent in this movie. At that moment, I was like, oh, I feel like you can see the low budget in that scene,
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the CGI for sure later on. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely.
But the speaking of the troll under the bridge, that's known as a ringlefinch. That is one of a few different species, quote unquote, depicted in this movie. And it's an element of the movie I do also really find joy in, just like putting science to these mythological creatures. So we have the ringlefinch, we have the Tussolad, which is the giant three-headed troll that lives in the forest. We have mountain kings who live together like in a pack in the caves of the mountains. And then we have the Jotnar, which is the largest of the trolls, standing over 200 feet tall. This is the troll from the poster. It's the troll at the climax of the film. Big Mamma Jamma.
I didn't realize until today that the famous classical piece In the Hall of the Mountain King is a reference to a troll, because that's by a Norwegian composer. And it's, Mountain Kings. That's the name of one of the troll species in folklore. And that's what that title refers to. Never knew that until today.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The cultural osmosis. It's real.
Yeah. I love just all the unexpected connections we make,
Mm-hmm. It's like we're Norwegian.
Well, at least I feel like I'm getting my first taste of Norwegian culture. Not my first taste, but I'm starting to dive in a little bit more,
No, I kid. I have been to Iceland, which is not Norway, but it is a Scandinavian country. So and I only say that because in Troll Hunter, there are many shots of the Norwegian landscape. Beautiful fields and fjords and mountains and forests. And it did the Icelandic landscape, which I have seen, it just kind of had some similarities to that. That just very northern tundra type feel.
Yeah, same. I've also been to Iceland, and that's the only Scandinavian country that I've been to. And the countryside is beautiful in a very austere way. It's kind of harsh, but just very, just very beautiful, kind of primal. I feel like Iceland is the only place I've been on the planet where I feel like I could be on a different planet right now.
Yes, austere is a great word to describe it. And do you remember? As I was walking around just Reykjavik, the capital city, my friend did take me on a drive out into the country a little bit, but I could smell the sulfur.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the volcano, the volcanism, is that the right word?
Yeah, I think
volcanic activity on the island.
Yeah, totally. I went to hot springs there too, and you could definitely smell the sulfur there. It's the fissures in the earth are like right there practically.
Yeah, very otherworldly.
Yeah. And yeah, Norway in this movie I was reminded of that as well.
Oh, I'd love to visit.
Yeah,
Really.
same.
Well, this movie, Troll Hunter, was released in October 2010. Good reviews, all in general, with particular praise for Jespersen's performance as Hans and the special effects. The special effects in relativity to its small budget drew praise from critics. The mockumentary found footage was favorably compared to the Blair Witch Project, but the style did have its detractors. Admittedly, I did not include specific reviews, but just in general, what I was gleaning was more of a cup of tea type of situation where the reviewer seemed to be knocking the style in general without specific criticism.
Yeah, that's mostly what I read as well. But, like you said, I mean, most of the reviews that I read were positive and seemed to be kind of surprised at how effective the movie is at pulling off its conceit.
Yeah, surprised that they could execute this level of CGI with their budget, which makes me think of Godzilla -1. Small budget, great CGI that even won an Oscar. And then we get movies from the churn mill of Hollywood that cost hundreds of millions of dollars with really terrible CGI. Worse than in Troll Hunter.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think, ultimately it comes down to the storytelling, right? I feel like the Hollywood movies with bad CGI are also filled with like cliche, stereotype, well, maybe not stereotypes, but like cliche and like lazy storytelling, familiar story beats, that kind of thing. And I think if you have a fresh take, and I have some criticisms of this movie too, but if you have a fresh take like Troll Hunter, I think the special effects kind of go along with that. It's part of the storytelling, and I think it just seems more effective, surprising, unexpected if the storytelling in general is kind of a fresh take.
And I was also thinking it was not lost on me that many of the trolls, when they're on screen, it's the lighting is low because they're at night. They're in a cave. We're looking at the trolls through a night vision camera, which is smart because you're using the lighting to hide what is arguably not great CGI. So you can hide some of maybe some of the wires, so to speak, in the lighting. It's an old trick, but it works.
Yeah. It's smart, but also maybe a little disappointing. Like in the scene with the troll beneath the bridge, you barely see that troll, It's like off screen most of the time. And like you said, with the night vision in the cave, it's also very hard to see them. My favorite instance of CGI and special effects in general is the end of the movie, where it's like this great snowy, wintry landscape. And I feel like you do finally get a pretty good look at the troll in that scene. There's this great, very exciting moment. I'm getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but like, there's this truck driving and it's like driving in between like the huge feet and the tail of this troll. And that's the best CGI and the best special effects in the movie. And not coincidentally, it's when you can see it the best, when it's not like hidden in low light and night vision and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Pros and cons. You're not wrong.
In my, of course. Yeah.
No, I felt like I wanted more of that Ringlefinch, the troll bridge.
Yeah.
The bridge troll. Sorry. Yeah.
That scene reminded me of Jurassic Park too, where they like lure is it the T-Rex with the goat? Yeah. Classic.
And you just see the hand.
Yes. In Troll Hunter, right?
Yeah. But there's that one shot in Jurassic Park of the T-Rex claw just kind of falling off the fence.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Uwe Dahl was inspired by Jurassic Park. Classic monster movie, obviously.
Who isn't these days?
Exactly, yeah.
We're still in that movie's shadow.
Yep.
Well, we'll talk about all that and more. We are going to get to our sponsor break here and a big old bag of Menia's mailbox. So Camp Kaiju is brought to you by Zach Linder and the Zach Pack, powered by Coldwell Banker Realty. Whether you're looking for your dream home, a savvy investment property, or expert guidance in home rehab and flipping, the Zach Pack has you covered. Check the link in the show notes for more information. Matt, we've got 3 bits of mail here.
Okay, cool. So Aminia's mailbox is brought to you by Patreon. If you become a patron, then your comments are tops. Sean Childers, frequent guest star on the show, left a comment on our Blackula episode. Sean wrote, "Really good ep. Always glad to hear Sean Pryor on here. Haven't seen the movie before, but now I'm interested in doing so." Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Sean. It was amazing to have Sean Pryor on the show. His love for Blackula, with some, slight qualms and reservations, was fully felt during that recording. Yeah, a lot of fun to talk about that movie. Definitely worth watching. I feel like everybody knows the title, but it's worth watching for more than that. It's more than just the clever punny title, which actually takes on some criticism, some kind of inherent commentary in the movie,
Yeah.
The title of Blackula.
And speaking of Blackula, another Patreon member of ours, superfan Don, he wrote in on our Patreon, and a great story. I'm just gonna read it here. He says, "Great episode, guys. I'm like Vincent and Matt. I'd heard of Blackula, but didn't really think I would like it. I now say I was pleasantly surprised with it. Yes, it's 70s through and through, but some very solid performances. I recognized some of the actors, and the story was compelling. One detail caught my eye. When Dr. Thomas went up a set of stairs to get to the morgue, no one in their right mind would put a morgue above the ground floor. You don't want to try to carry a body on a set of stairs. Wait, maybe I should clarify something. I'm a medical laboratory professional. At one of the hospitals I worked at, the lab was in charge of releasing bodies from the morgue to the funeral directors. I regularly had to check the papers and help them get the body into the hearse. So I know what it's like to move a body. Their idea of a lab was a bit disappointing. Some beakers, tubing, and a microscope. And don't forget some bottles labeled poison. Despite the slurs and dated language, it's an enjoyable film." Thank you, Don. What a story. Yeah, what an experience. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you. When watching Blackula, I was like, I don't think they would have the morgue above ground level. Like, I also thought that was kind of weird, but I didn't base that on any kind of scientific knowledge. So it's good to know that Don backs me up on that.
Yeah, I guess so.
With the background, speak to that from experience. Amazing.
Yeah, I must have been paying more attention to that one guy's hook for a hand. I missed the flight of stairs aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, because the coroner is played by, that's the guy you're talking about, I think, right? With the hook for a hand?
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
the coroner. Played by Elisha Cook, very famous figure from horror movie history. He's also in Messiah of Evil. He's in Touch of Evil, the Orson Welles movie, I believe. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
80% sure. But yeah, it was great. It was very cool to see him in Blackula.
Yeah. How do you feel about another 70s iconic film called Trilogy of Terror? Well, Patreon member Peggy, who is my mom, and just giving some love to my mom, she shouts out the classic 70s TV movie Trilogy of Terror, which stars Karen Black. She says, one of the best TV movies of the week. The 70s had a lot of creepy stuff on TV. To which I say, yeah, TV movies and horror TV specials were a thing. I was not alive then, but I know the reputation, and I have seen Trilogy of Terror, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, though, and I also watched it on TV, not in the 70s, but watched it as a kid on TV, and it is scary. And yeah, Trilogy of Terror is great. I would love to rewatch that. It's been a long time. John Carpenter has a TV movie from the 70s also. Now, of course, I can't remember what it's called, but it's, I think, right before he made Halloween, if I remember correctly, from 77. Sorry, you can keep going. I just am bothered that I can't remember the name of this movie, so.
Well, our last one for tonight is from YouTube. A new listener, Taberis Stobbs 2929. Anyways, To Barastabs, thank you. They say simply, King Kong Lives is cinema. And that's in response to our recent episode with author Tom Shubilla when he was on to talk about King Kong versus Godzilla. So we do have some fans out there of King Kong Lives. I gave it a higher rating than you did, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I will stick up for that movie a little bit.
It's not the worst movie we've talked about.
No,
It has some fun elements, for sure.
it ain't the best, but it's not the worst.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, Killdozer is still the worst, but maybe something else will take that claim to fame someday.
You did really hate something recently we listened to that wasn't just Killdozer. Now I can't remember.
Huh.
Oh, I don't think you hated Jaws 2, but you weren't a fan of Jaws 2.
That's true. Yeah, I prefer Jaws 4 to Jaws 2, honestly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Jaws 4 is more fun, you could say.
Exactly. But no, I mean, King Kong Lives, it's campy, has a lot of fun elements. Worth watching. It is cinematic. It is a movie. I'll give it that. I did also want to mention that the John Carpenter TV movie I was thinking of is called Someone's Watching Me from 1978, starring Lauren Hutton. Very, very good.
Okay. I hadn't heard of it. Nice.
Kind of his take on Rear Window. Highly recommended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That man is so prolific.
Indeed.
Well, you know who else is prolific? Mr. Peter Lorre. He's not here right now. He said he was going to make an appearance, but he's earned the right to be a little flaky, and I don't blame him. He's been through enough with us two yanking him about.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised he still shows up for his Poverty Row Picture Show segments.
Hey, he's ever the professional. He shows up. He does his job. He doesn't have to love it, but he does his job.
Much like a lot of the movies he probably appeared in, I feel like he probably didn't have 100% passion for all of the seemingly hundreds of movies that he was in, but he still shows up like a true professional.
And that's why we're still talking about him.
Yep.
He was not in this Poverty Row picture called Strangler of the Swamp, but he's going to talk about it. And our Letterboxd tagline is, he was hanged for a crime he didn't commit. And now he's presumably the tagline leads into the title, Strangler of the Swamp. Like if you saw it on a poster.
Yeah, I love it. Now he's the what?
He's the what? The Letterboxd synopsis reads, a number of swamp landmen have died by strangulation, and the inhabitants believe that an innocent man they hanged is seeking revenge on all of the male descendants of those responsible for his death. Maria, granddaughter of the innocent ferryman, decides to operate the ferry service. Chris Sanders, a son of one of the men who did the hanging, and Maria fall in love. The Strangler seizes Chris, and Maria offers her life if Chris is spared.
Oh, man.
It's an interesting synopsis. I don't know who any of those people are.
Right. It's a very thorough synopsis, and I can only imagine this movie is like 65 minutes long, That must be like the entire thing.
Yeah, if that.
Right. Well, at least they don't give away the ending. Peter will have to hopefully not give it away, but tell us more about it.
Welcome to the Poverty Row Studios on the other side of Hollywood. Yes, where the stars were dimmer, but the red carpet's dripped with blood. Together we will watch the best of the worst. Movies known for their limited budgets, outlandish concepts, and questionable performances, but with enough haunted houses, zombies, ape men, and devil bats to keep you up at night. This is the Poverty Row Picture Show, and I dare you to sleep through these nightmares. I am your host, Peter Lorre. You may know me from such venerable pictures as Island of Doomed Men and Think Fast, Mr. Moto. Well, perhaps venerable isn't quite the word, but you know what? I never made a movie as stinky as Strangler in the Swamp. Oh, What? Did I offend your sensibilities? Your ironclad positivity? Hey, I dare you to sleep through these nightmares, and this picture from PRC certainly challenges the eyelids. The Strangler in the Swamp is about the group of men who frame one another for their backwoods Cajun community for murder. The unlucky bastard was hanged for the crime, and now he returns as a vengeful, swampy specter. He haunts and hunts those who did him dirty. Now, The Strangler in the Swamp was released on New Year's Day in 1946. Ring-a-ding, baby. The war was over, and apparently our appetite for murky swamps of murder. This movie did not do well, is what I am saying. Nonetheless, Strangler in the Swamp does possess a cult status among the couple of folks who really dig into this stuff. Now, to be fair, the film does boast an impressively swampy set. I mean, there's enough fog here used to put the Wolfman to shame. Now, I know that I was reaching for a joke, but I missed. Get it? I really missed my chance for a fog joke. Some interesting bits of trivia while I'm on a roll. About The Strangler in the Swamp, it stars Rosemary LaPlanche, who was Miss America in 1941. Did you know her special talent was pretending she could act? Oh no, did I offend the Rosemary LaPlanche fan club? Oh, Lenore, I did not mean to be so salty. I sincerely apologize to the spirit of Rosemary LaPlanche. I, more than anyone, understand the feeling of rolling over in one's grave. Wait a minute, why are you cawing? Lenore, is that you? But, how could this be? How could you be turning back into a raven? I worked so hard last season to turn you into the woman you are. Yes, I will. I will think about how to reverse this tragedy. Perhaps the answer lies in our next film. Listeners, next time on the Poverty Row Picture Show, we will be watching a film called The Face of Marble from 1946. Now, Lenore, sit still, Lenore.
Do I make you nervous, Doctor?
Karen Black, a major star, creates a television first.
There's a golden chain wrapped around it to keep the spirit from making the doll come to life.
Face to face with the unbearable unknown. Trilogy of terror.
It's a piece of skin, like leather.
From all corners of the earth they gather to study the mystifying frozen fossil, a reptilian tale that grows into a giant of terror.
It's alive! It's loose! You have been invited here to see for yourselves one of the most amazing events in the annals of scientific history.
Reptilicus, a monstrous, massive beast whose astounding appearance causes panic.
Reptilicus approaching the city. Repeat, Reptilicus approaching the city.
This is Grayson. All units. Reptilicus, an annihilating mastodon, immune to all known weapons of warfare, creating chaos such as mankind has never before known.
So, thematically speaking, I think there actually is a lot to read into this film. That's not just us searching for things to talk about. I'll pull one more quote from the director from this Gizmodo article. And this speaks to the director's thematic goals. So he did have a very specific goal in mind about wildlife conservation. And he goes on to say, the only topic I baked into this film is related to how we treat our wildlife, how we treat our treasures in a way. That is there in the film, for me, buried under the action. They are advanced animals. They have a human side to them. They are defenseless. All they care about is getting food, getting shelter, the things that animals and we care about as basic needs. They're not there to kill. They're defending themselves mostly.
I like that. Yeah, I do think that comes through in the movie for sure. There's a supporting character who's a veterinarian, and Hans works with her to, study why the trolls seem to be ill, seem to be behaving erratically. I like that element. I think Hans talks about the government, he doesn't like his job anymore. That's why he's working with these students. He feels like he's exploited by the government. It's thankless work, like killing these creatures that, haven't really mistreated anybody. So I like that element of it. I feel like the movie could have gone a little bit more in that direction because the climax, I do think we're supposed to be happy that he shoots a missile at this enormous 200-foot tall troll, and then it crumbles into stone, and it's kind of a victorious moment. So maybe there's a little bit of it seems a little contradictory there, but the subtext is there, or maybe not subtext because it's pretty prominent, but that theme is there for sure.
Taking the words right out of my mouth. I feel like this quote is very interesting to me because that is the director saying, this is my intent.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the movie, I didn't get that. I got celebration when trolls were destroyed and blown up. Like they were fist pumping awesome moments. And they were. I love those moments.
Yeah.
So then when the character Hans, he has a bit of a monologue about how as a government official he was ordered to massacre troll kids and troll women. That speech felt a little there was dissonance there. It didn't match the overall tone of the film.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the main problems in the movie is that narratively it is a little bit sloppy. And you could, I guess, pin that on the mockumentary found footage approach, but that's probably not a sufficient explanation, I don't think, because rabies also comes into the film towards the end because Tomas seems to be infected by rabies, but then the movie doesn't really do anything with that. I kind of just assumed that somehow Hans was going to inject a cure into this enormous troll and cure it of rabies, and it would kind of frolic back to the mountains or whatever, which maybe would be a little bit naive, too much of a happy ending, but the movie just does nothing with the whole rabies element and the fact that all these trolls seem to be impacted by this disease, and then he just kills it at the end. It's oh, okay, I guess that's taken care of.
Right.
Yeah.
So narratively, I would say Hans does not have a catharsis. Hans is the same character he was at the beginning. Now that works because the character is so endearing, but I think to your point, to make it to drive home the themes a little bit more strongly through the character of Hans, you would have liked to have seen a character arc, a different man than he was at the beginning, by maybe saving the troll instead of destroying it.
Exactly, because if he does hate his job so much and he's so tormented by it, I feel like there should be some catharsis at the end of the movie, like you were saying, but we don't really get that, And I think there are other ways that things are a little bit sloppy as well. There's a seismologist who's introduced in the last 5 or maybe 10 minutes of the movie, and he's totally irrelevant. He does not need to be there. He does nothing at all to advance the plot. He doesn't he barely even has any dialogue. And there's also a cameraman character who was killed by one of the trolls. So then we get a second camera person, a woman who is a Muslim. And I thought that was kind of an interesting new theme that was added, because then it's oh, did the trolls, is it only Christian blood that they smell? Or is it faith in God, faith in religion, that's kind of what triggers them a little bit. And then the movie doesn't do anything with that either. So it's like, I feel like you're kind of making up the story as you go along and you're using the found footage premise as like a way to excuse that.
Okay, there's a lot here. The ending in general, there were some rushed components, I agree, in the storytelling. Like the end of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where even that ending kind of has like a found footage feel, like the camera and then the police show up, and it kind of
Yeah.
felt like that. Like, oh, now the government's here and we're all just gonna run away, run away.
Yeah. I love the Holy Grail comparison. That's great.
It just came to me. But putting a pin in that, I just want to circle back to Hans. There is a reading, I think, this is just me thinking out loud. So the character does destroy the Jotnar, but then he does just walk off into the wilderness with just a backpack. It doesn't look like he is equipped or prepared for the weather conditions and the terrain that he's venturing off into. So I did actually read a downbeat, nihilistic reading into that. Does he plan to return? Maybe not. And maybe he's just come to that kind of terms with his fate.
Interesting. I like that reading. I think maybe there's also the possibility that, I feel like the movie implies that he and Hilda, the veterinarian, have a certain chemistry. They hug. It's like a prolonged hug, and like every time they talk on the phone, it seems pretty sincere. So I think maybe the more positive interpretation is that maybe Hans is going to be with her. But yeah, if he's like walking through the tundra without a coat, that seems unlikely.
Yeah.
But it really does leave it wide open, like the fate of his character.
Right, right. So if I'm being generous, that was the choice. And yet, if the director literally says, my theme is wildlife conservation, I would have liked to have seen some conserving of the wildlife.
Yes, right. That would have driven home the point for sure. Yeah.
Just at the end, blow them all up, the rest of the runtime. But at the end, save one troll.
Yeah. Yeah, like if anything, I feel like the kind of critique of the government being, what's the word? Operating behind the scenes, like covertly and like lying to its citizenry and like, because they claim that the troll attacks are actually bear attacks. And this government bureaucrat is kind of like lying to the public and sort of keeping this conspiracy, or not conspiracy, he's keeping this charade alive. Do you say charade or charade?
In that instance, in that context, I think you could say charade.
Okay. Felt a little pretentious, but also more fitting for the moment, Sorry.
We could be pretentious on this show.
The question suddenly occurred to me, and yeah. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent now. So like the anti-government critique, I feel like that's a little bit more prominent in the movie because that's actually how Troll Hunter ends. There's like fake news footage with the prime minister that's like doctored to make it seem like he admits to trolls being in Norway. So that element is there more than the wildlife conservation, I would say.
Yeah, anti-government, government conspiracy. So I put a pin in this just a few minutes ago. We'll pull that pin back out with the ending. I mean, yeah, we're gonna talk about spoilers, but in the epilogue of the film, over like text on the screen, it's revealed that these student filmmakers we've been following are never heard from again. They're never seen. They just disappear. And again, that dissonance, because I'm being confronted by a read that these kids were eliminated by the government or something. Something terrible happened to them, which did not fit the tone of the rest of the film. More specifically, those kinds of stakes, those kinds of life and death stakes, to me, were not present throughout the film. You had Finn, the government bureaucrat, just showing up and saying, "Hey, I'll take your camera." He never once said, "Hey, we could kill you."
Right.
And then he did. And so that epilogue really threw me for a loop.
Same. Yeah. it doesn't really make a lot of sense because Finn says those things. He's like, if you think I'm going to let you walk out of here with those tapes, you're dead. You're wrong. He doesn't say you're dead wrong. He says you're wrong. But then he just leaves and he like lets them walk away with the tapes. So it's like, well, you're not only are you like a shady government bureaucrat, you're also very bad at that, man. But then, yeah, like everybody, like all the teenagers die at the end. Those titles say that like the corpse of the cameraman is never found in that cave where he was killed. So apparently the government went in there to like recover his corpse and keep that under wraps. But yeah, I mean, to your point that like, you know, having that, but also like these fun, silly moments where like trolls blow up and we get like slime and blood and like troll piss all over you, it just doesn't really like coalesce very well, you know?
Yeah, so I think there was an opportunity to heighten the stakes throughout the film just a little bit.
Yeah.
To make that ending ring true. Oh, but then I was thinking about it. The epilogue doesn't say, I don't think it says that the young filmmakers died or were killed. I think that's like the first reading, the obvious reading. But then I thought, well, Hans, the troll hunter, he says he's the only one, and he has to be replaced at some point, you would think. So if I was the government agent, I would say to these young filmmakers who now know the secret, I'd say, look, we could kill you, or you could become the new troll hunters. So I think that's a plausible, more hopeful ending. It's all conjecture, but that's how I choose to read it. It's more interesting too, to me.
I like that reading. I honestly feel like you're putting more thought into it than the filmmakers did. Like, because we don't even know what happened with like Tomas's rabies. Like, was he cured of rabies? Presumably, at some point he was. And like, you know, earlier in the movie, it talks about how Hans was a member of the military. He was a member of the Navy, so he's a veteran. And presumably, that's kind of what led to him like taking on this role with the government. But like, if he doesn't do it anymore, then what does the government do? Do they? I mean, I do like your reading, but like it seems more likely that they would like turn to like a soldier or like some other government bureaucrat to like, you know, not risk that being exposed to the public. So who knows? But I don't think the movie really has thought that through. Like, I don't think it really has any indication of what happens after the end, you know?
No. Yeah, right. And that's why, I mean, the movie, you could call it a comedy, right? Like, it's, and I'm watching it not as a Norwegian, so I don't know these comedians at all. So to me, they are very dramatic actors.
Yeah.
But the wry sense of humor did come through. I still knew, oh, this has a sense of humor, even when they're being serious.
Yeah.
So if it is a comedy, I don't know, not to knock comedy, but yeah, maybe we're not going to think about those kinds of particulars in terms of stakes and tragedy and whatnot.
Right. And, you know, I admire it when comedic movies do have like darker themes and like maybe have like things going on thematically that like are not right there on the surface. Like, I really like it when comedies do that. But in this case, it doesn't really seem like, I just feel like you need to balance that tone a little bit better than this movie is able to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Certainly that ending. The Monty Python ending, we'll call it.
Yeah. It's too bad because up until then, the ending is my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, the sweeping vista of the tundra and the giant troll. And then, but like juxtaposed in the foreground, like at the troll's feet in these like really wide shots, you see the figure of Hans or you see his Jeep. And just like the sense of scale is really impressive to me.
Yeah, same. Like visually and just, you know, dramatically, the ending is the most effective part of that movie until the last 5 minutes when it kind of drops the ball a little bit.
Yeah, they're like, we got to wrap this up.
Yeah. Indeed.
I do find the Christian aspect interesting, and obviously this is beyond just the movie Troll Hunter, but it's an element of troll folklore. But this is the director again. He says, quote, when the trolls, smell Christian blood, they get very aggressive. It's like holding a red cape in front of an ox. It's that kind of thing. that is also related to the stories because it was the Christians that destroyed the trolls' power, so to speak. When the country was Christian in the 13th century, the trolls lost all their power over the population because they weren't worshiping or afraid of them anymore. The people stopped believing in them, and then they started hiding out in the forest to avoid humans and being killed. So, yeah, I really admire, that's just a really interesting perspective on, yeah, we know trolls aren't real, but at a certain point in history, they were real, quote unquote. And through the dominating forces of organized religion, the culture shifted. And you think about that now with colonialism is a strong word for what I'm talking about, but a hegemony, to bring that word back to cultures. I mean, you lose native religions, you lose native languages, you lose native cultural touchstones through another's religion or another's media. I mean, you could extrapolate as much as you want.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. And it is really fascinating because it kind of speaks to like the relationship between myth and history, like, because mythology for so long was a way for human beings to understand the world. And like, oftentimes it was through figures like trolls or ogres, like, gods and demons and like very ancient religions. But then, yeah, like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, like the kind of main major organized religions that we think of, did kind of replace those elements of myth and folklore. And you wonder what was lost in that process, And like, I feel like maybe that's why a lot of monsters still do have such mythical power, because they go back to like ancient times when human beings were just trying to understand the world. And maybe like that's why, I don't know, monsters like trolls still have like this element of like, what if they do exist? Because like thousands and thousands of years ago, people thought they did, I don't know if that's historically super accurate, but like, what point I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that part of it, and I like that quote from the director. Again, the movie might have done a little bit more to suggest that, and it seems like maybe a little bit like, sorry to use the word sloppy again, but like introducing a Muslim character and asking that question, but then like not really doing anything with that. It's like, oh, you set up like a really interesting tension there, and then you kind of just abandon that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the best jokes of the movie when Hans is asked, can they smell a Muslim's blood? And just deadpan, perfect delivery. He says, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's find out.
Let's find out. We never do find out.
Right.
If the movie had 15 more minutes, maybe we could have found out. But again, to your point, it wasn't interested in that. To my point, it was a comedy. We just made the joke and move on.
Yeah.
But, you do wonder if there was a missed opportunity there for a richer conversation.
Right. And, like maybe it just started as like, it's an element of folklore, so let's throw it in there. Maybe they weren't really trying to make a big comment on that, but it could have been, I don't know exactly how they would have done it, but like just a little bit more in that direction might have been interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I really appreciate the historical context behind, or the take on why trolls are against Christians, because of those reasons we just talked about.
Yeah.
Interesting. I love that. I love history, and I love fairy tales and like traditional folklore. And I think a movie like Troll Hunter, here we are having this conversation. So I love that value in updating, modernizing traditional folklore.
I'm trying to think, I don't know. It's kind of hard to think of other examples, to be honest, of like really ancient folklore updated to like a modern setting. I'm trying, and I can't really think of too many.
I agree. Or to this quality of filmmaking, I feel like there's bargain bin horror movies that repurpose traditional things.
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking of a couple horror movies that are set in modern times that like rework Native American folklore a little bit. Like Antlers, the movie from a couple years ago, does that. I mean, Wendigo, a Larry Fessenden movie, does that as well from maybe like 20 years ago. But I would have to rewatch both those movies. Not to get too much into identity politics, they're both by non-native filmmakers, so I just wonder if that's really the best way to update that folklore. And but, it's interesting to like consider that maybe yeah, some of these like ancient ways to like look at the world are still around in some like metaphorical way.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, I have not seen those movies. I've heard of them. Now they're on my list. But sorry, I was just thinking about there's a Cinderella type movie that came out recently. I think it's makeup effects is getting award buzz.
Hmm. Is it The Ugly Stepsister by any
Yeah.
chance?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, which is set in like several centuries ago. So now like updated to modern times, but it is like a very feminist, very like body horror in your face kind of retelling of that. Maybe, like maybe Sinners does that a little bit. Like
Mm.
I really love Sinners, and I think that is an attempt to like of course it takes the vampire mythology, but I think it's kind of playing with history and just it's not updated to like modern times per se, although there is that kind of like mid-credit scene that's set in the 90s, which I love.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the closest American film that I really loved from 2025 that I can think of that's like updating mythology and folklore in like a really intentional way.
That's true. I'll give you that. Yeah. Well, there's some other little themes in Troll Hunter. There's tension between farmers, ranchers, and wildlife conservation, which is a theme in any rural area. We also see tension with this Polish bear hunter who's providing the bears. I did read that Poles make up a large immigrant population in Norway and are often the butt of jokes and anti-immigrant sentiment. So Troll Hunters poking fun at that a little bit in that instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that scene. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, because like those characters like taking part in this like ridiculous again charade. I guess I
Charade.
use that word. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna say charade next time.
No,
but
charade doesn't feel right either.
but the Polish people in the movie are like finding dead bears to like put at the scene of these troll devastation to mislead the public or whatever. So it's like this vast government conspiracy, and it's totally ridiculous.
And they there's a really funny moment. Someone is questioning the bear, like bears don't walk like this, like walk this funny. And the guy says, "Well, it was a Russian bear."
Right.
The Russian bears, they're a little off or something. Just making fun of the Russians.
That was a good, relatively subtle way to like maybe comment on Norway's like, I don't know, xenophobia is a strong word, but like distrust of outsiders.
Not to go back to the star of the film, Yes Person's political views, but there is an audience for his humor. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in many countries throughout the world right now, including the United States, there is a strong like right-leaning sort of attitude among some people, where it is entrenching like nationalistic views and distrusting outsiders. That's definitely not constrained to Norway, and it's always sadly like a relevant theme. Troll Hunter's a comedy, and it's like, that moment is kind of presented with levity, so like not it doesn't hammer the point home or anything. But it's there if you want to find it there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Still a lot of moments of humor in this movie, a lot of moments of camp, of fun. Before we talk about our breakdowns, were there any other thematic elements you wanted to highlight?
Well, this kind of goes along with like the tension between farmers and like people who work in rural areas and like, the more urban areas of Norway and like the government itself. But like some of the power stuff, like power lines and power grids, I thought was kind of interesting because like all these power lines are like meant as like a shield to keep out the trolls. But then every time they put up new power lines, like the citizens kind of complain about it. It's like a big expenditure and it's like an eyesore on the landscape and all this stuff. And it's like a surprisingly prominent part of the story, I would say, because they visit a power plant and they like ask like why there's been a lot of destruction to these like power lines recently, and it turns out to be the trolls, of course. But yeah, I think that element is there too. You get these like, I don't know, rural communities that like don't really trust electricity, like, or these, at least these kind of like major forms of electricity, but it is kind of keeping out the trolls. So I think that's kind of like symbolic way to like depict that tension, you know?
We see that in this country with offshore windmills, but even in the Midwest, like people on the plains in beautiful mountain landscapes, they see the windmills go up for energy, and they call it an eyesore on the landscape.
Yeah. And maybe taking jobs away from like more traditional industries like coal and stuff like that, where if
Yeah.
it's better for the environment and in the long run better for human beings, still it's like in the short term, it's like taking away jobs and security and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's all there too.
Unexpected.
No, I think I think there are unexpected real issues presented in this film to varying levels of depth, but there's
Yeah.
still a lot there.
Totally agree. Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot I liked about this movie. I thought the found footage mockumentary approach worked for me in this movie. I think it lended an effective air of suspense to a lot of the action. The first time we encounter a troll in the dark woods, the camera's shaking, and it's just something like that where it's not just shaking for the sake of it. To me, it was supporting the suspense because I can't see anything, just like the characters can't see anything. So I'm in that relationship with the characters. The wry sense of humor, I really loved. The world building, I thought was all very methodical and intentional. And things I mentioned before, the different kinds of trolls. I like the CGI in this movie. It's low budget but effective for all the reasons I've mentioned before. Yeah.
Nice. I would agree with some of that. I disagree with some of it, and I'll talk about that in the bad category. But yeah, I do like this movie's sense of humor. I actually really like Jespersen's performance a lot. I think, the character of Hans is instrumental in maintaining our interest and like keeping us engaged through the movie, and I think he's able to do that. And I think it gets better as it goes on, up until the last 5 minutes. But like the late sequence, like on the, you have these great snowy landscapes, and like again, you can finally see this huge troll like fairly clearly for the first time. All that works really well, like such a dramatic end to the movie. And then before that, you also have the scene in the cave where like they're kind of like investigating this cave a little bit, and then this family of trolls like comes back and they have to hide from them. And it's actually a pretty suspenseful moment, but it's also like a moment of humor because then I think one of the trolls farts and like all the characters is like nearly throwing up, and they're like right behind this troll and like trying to stay hidden. So that was kind of a nice moment of gross out but still funny humor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, the senses of humor and like later on some of those scenes, yeah, do kind of catch your interest more like strikingly than some of the early parts in the movie do, in my opinion.
Tell me about the form and the aesthetic and why I'm wrong.
Yeah, so this is in the bad category, and this like will speak to my subjective response. Like you talked before about how the negative reviews were like, it's just not my cup of tea sort of thing. And that might be true of me to a certain extent, but I hate the fake found footage mockumentary approach. I think I talked about this with Cloverfield too. I really hate it. And I think like, what you gain in the element of like, oh, we have this gimmick, like then you lose a lot in terms of like shot composition, because this approach, you don't have to set up a shot. You just like point the camera anywhere, you shake it all around, and you're like, oh, it's found footage, it doesn't matter. And then like it also kind of allows you to like not really edit very carefully. Like in this movie, it's like you have some shots that last like a couple seconds of them like driving, and the Norwegian landscape is like visible through the windows, or it's just a shot of them like walking through a dark forest. And it's like you don't even have to like edit this scene very carefully because you're just conveying information, it's like, And like there's even a title at the beginning of the movie that's like, this is a rough cut of the found footage, so it's like automatically excusing its bad editing, like, and like usually when I see a movie like this or Cloverfield, I'm like, all right, I get that it's supposed to be found footage or whatever, but like, first of all, I don't believe that because I understand this is the concept, but like clearly it's not found footage, it's trolls. And in Cloverfield, it's like, CGI of like this huge monstrous thing. So like I just don't buy that it's found footage. And maybe you could say that I should have more suspension of disbelief. But one of the reasons I don't is because like the aesthetic, the visual style is like not convincing because you're not setting up any compositions. You're not editing very carefully. Like I feel like some of the shots in Troll Hunter, like the Norwegian landscape is beautiful, but it's like you could get a similar image on your phone just like while you're on vacation, you know what I mean? So every time I watch a movie like this, I'm like, just set up a camera, set up a shot, please, and like edit this scene so that like I am affected emotionally or viscerally. Because with this kind of approach, it's like you can do whatever you want, and like that's your excuse. You don't even have to try to affect the audience. So I'm going off on a rant a little bit, and I apologize, but I really do not like this approach, and I feel like it loses a lot of like drama and intensity by like shooting a movie this way.
Can I ask what? And I'm just asking. I love this discourse. Are there examples in film, monster movies or not, where this form works for you?
I do like the Blair Witch Project. I think like that movie is a lot of stuff happens off screen in that movie. And maybe that's why maybe a lot of people would criticize it, for being kind of boring and you don't see a lot of horror on screen. But I think that's why I buy it. Like, when you hear people like rattling the tent or like not people, you hear something rattling the tent or like at the end of the movie, again, I won't give away any spoilers, but it's like, this myth, this folklore at the very end of the movie, you seem to see it happening right in front of you, and it like, I buy that it's found footage in that movie. But here, it's not just like a shaky camera that like convinces you that it's found footage or that it's really happening. It's also the performances and the dialogue and like the visual effects are decent in this movie and in Cloverfield, but it's like CGI is always going to be, there's like the uncanny valley, right? It's not really happening. So I think like the only time I would really buy it, an approach like this, is when you don't have CGI. And maybe that's like just a little bit too black or white, but I honestly think that's kind of the case.
No, that's a good point you raise. I mean, that speaks to me, the inherent conflict and juxtaposition of found footage, which is, this is real, like as real as it can be. And yet the subject of your real film is a CGI image, which is not in camera, which is inherently not real. So there is a total dissonance in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like maybe even if it was like, it would be almost impossible for like the giant troll at the end. But if it was animatronics or like a man in a suit, I might actually buy that more with this kind of thing.
Right. Can you talk a little? Am I totally off base here? Just tell me if I'm just ignorant. Is there any sense of cinema verite to Troll Hunter?
I mean, I wouldn't use the term cinema verite because I think that does speak to like realism. And like, obviously this movie is like not trying to be realistic, but I think, I would say that like the concept would work. I think for a lot of people it did work. And the concept for Cloverfield did work for a lot of people, I wouldn't say that it was cinema verite necessarily, but I think it was like an interesting tension between like, supposedly this is found footage that actually happened, but obviously it didn't because it's trolls and like huge monsters and stuff like that,
Well,
so I think that element is there,
Yeah.
I don't know if is that what you were asking? Sorry.
No, I've got my critical brain on right now. No, but in the movie, it is real.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying it's not real because it's trolls. Well, we know that as the audience, but in the world of the film, it is real.
Yeah. But that's where I would say that like there are other things that like lend to a sense of realism, and I think like the performances and the dialogue and the CGI prevent that from happening for me. But yeah, I mean, I think like certainly like the shaky handheld camera and like the sort of like jarring like cuts in the middle of a scene, hypothetically, that would like create an element or a sense of like this is really happening, you know?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I like some of the Paranormal Activity movies too. Like, and I think again, it's because they like downplay CGI for the most part. No, but sometimes as a movie lover, I like to get on my soapbox a little bit. I know that it's just a fun concept. It's not like I understand that, but like I really don't like the found footage mockumentary approach, and I feel like usually it's not very effective for me personally. I would complain about some other things in the movie as well. I think like again, the story is a little bit sloppy, and that's not due to like the found footage approach. That's just because like again, it goes back to like that seismologist that comes in at the very end for no reason, the rabies element that they don't do anything with at all. So like I think the story, even if it is like found footage, could have been built more carefully. And then the final like criticism, I'll say, in the bad category for me, I thought the teenage characters, the students, were so insufferable. I hated them. Like, and if I was Hans, I would be like, no, you can't come along. I can't stand you guys. I don't want to be in your little movie, you know? And there are so many parts towards the beginning where they're like, oh, trolls don't exist. And they're like making fun of it. And it's like, all of this is kind of boring to me right now, you know? Like, I just look, let's just get past this, you know? Because okay, like, and now I'm probably over criticizing the movie a little bit too much, but I'll just leave it at that. I found those characters very obnoxious.
No, I mean, yeah, you're not going to get pushback from me on that. I felt like the movie could have gotten on with it a little bit sooner. I mean, I'll admit, like the found footage shaky cam stuff in this movie didn't bother me. But there were long stretches of just driving and landscape shots, which I found very beautiful. So like I didn't mind that, but I could still critique it and say, what is the purpose of this the 12th landscape shot of this movie? Is it to establish geography? Because we've already done that. Or is it to pad our runtime a little bit?
Yep.
And I think with found footage, that is a common criticism where we're just filming people walking through a forest. Okay, but we've done that before. What is the driving force behind this choice here? So yeah, the movie does fall into that trap a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I've been a little too hard on the movie. Maybe not too hard, but I've been hard on it. So like what's in your bad category for the movie?
Not much.
Now I feel especially bad.
No, but I love this because you've never seen the movie. I had seen it, and I do remember watching it. I watched it with my buddies, and it was just like kind of a nostalgic return for me. So I have a lot of forgiveness for stuff that in another movie I might be harder on.
Yeah.
Where I will criticize the movie is the thematic stuff we talked about. How we don't drive home any sympathy for the trolls. They are depicted as just dumb, ugly monsters to be blown up. But what if we had a kid? What if we had a mother nursing a kid? And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Are we going to blow that family up? I think there's a lot of missed opportunities because even in a movie, even in a comedy, and this is a comedy, and yet it's presented rather seriously. Therein lies the humor. But nonetheless, there was still opportunity to really deepen sympathy for our monsters.
Yeah, totally agree.
Can't wait to hear what you rate this movie.
Well, I won't be excessively hard on it, I promise. But I feel like we had a similar conversation with Cloverfield because, as I remember, you liked it a little bit more than I did. And, like, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but maybe nostalgia plays a certain role in that, Like, remembering seeing it when it first came out.
Maybe. I'll have to go back and listen to our episode. But I think the mockumentary, found footage, whatever you want to call it, in Troll Hunter works for me more than it did in Cloverfield.
Hmm.
Maybe it's because Cloverfield's approach was using different forms of, like, that was a found footage movie. And I want to draw the distinction then between found footage and a mockumentary.
Hmm.
I think Cloverfield is found footage. People find a cell phone and they record something. Troll Hunter, we are following filmmakers and they are making a documentary. We call it mockumentary because that's the genre. But to them, it's a documentary. So I think it does take itself, I don't know, in a more grounded direction by that definition.
That's a good point. It's a good distinction. I think it's even harder to believe in Cloverfield than in this case.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I like that because I use the terms interchangeably, but I probably shouldn't.
Right. And even mockumentary, we're calling it mockumentary, but in the world of the film, it is a serious documentary, which is why I brought up cinema verite.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think, like, again, I just don't know if like the element of realism is there, but like the concept is strong. I can see the potential there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, what if this movie was not a comedy?
I don't know. It's interesting to think about. And now I kind of want to see one with like animatronics and like a man in a suit and see if I would have a different experience,
Mm-hmm.
And if the tone was a little bit different too.
And if the camera was set up on a tripod. And
yeah. If it just like didn't have any found footage elements whatsoever.
If it was just a conventional movie.
Right. Conventional, but well made,
Yes. I love it. We're splitting hairs in the best ways. We're having a real conversation here.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you should have like passionate opinions if you're a movie lover,
Yeah. We'll host a panel about Troll Hunter and really spar about it.
I mean, that would be awesome. Sign me up.
All right. I think it's time to take us home here with our final ratings.
As always on Camp Kaiju, we have 4 ratings. Number 1, our highest rating. It is a timeless classic. It definitely stands the test of time. Number 2, there may be some antiquated moments, but overall it's great. It stands the test of time. Our third rating, it may be historically significant or just fun, but it does not stand the test of time. And our lowest rating, it's not worth revisiting. It definitely does not stand the test of time. What do you think? Do you want me to go first, or we can end on your opinion?
I'm here for your opinions. We'll end it on you. I will say we didn't specifically talk about our favorite campy moments in this movie, but we talked about so many.
Yeah.
So I don't need to rehash any of that, but there were the things we talked about already made me laugh. So here we go. I'm going to give this movie our second highest rating. There are some not dated, but maybe some elements maybe don't work for various reasons to various viewers. But overall, I think this movie's sense of history and culture and folklore are very strong. I think the movie's lead, Jespersen, is very strong. So funny. So funny. I laughed out loud with this movie. And I think the special effects for the budget they were on are very effective. And yeah, overall, despite my need for more thematic depth, I think this movie stands the test of time.
Nice. I love it. I'm going to give it our second lowest rating because it is fun. I do love the sense of humor that this movie has. It's a strong concept, to update traditional Norwegian folklore to a modern setting with this approach. It's a strong idea. And I'll fully admit that, like, it's subjective. Like, I just don't like this kind of formal approach. I don't think it's very convincing or effective for me, personally. And I have some other quibbles with the movie as well. So overall, I don't think it stands the test of time, but it is fun. A lot of people like this movie, and I understand why. And yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's a good time. But if you don't like the found footage approach or the fake documentary approach, you may come out of it much like I did, but maybe not. Hopefully not.
Just blast some Christian music and say best of luck.
Exactly, yeah. Maybe like cover yourself with some like troll slime before you see it.
Yeah. That was a campy moment. The Hans's truck playing the Christian music, because it was like so over the top at that point.
Yeah.
And then him keeping troll tails in his caravan. There was just like a lot of, I think, like really those kind of details enrich the world for me.
Yeah.
In a way that just, for me, it's easy to get sucked into a movie that pays attention to the details like that.
Yeah, that's fair. This isn't necessarily a campy moment, but I like when Hans tells the government guy, Finn, he's like, maybe it's time for a change in troll management. I thought that was a funny line. One of my favorite moments of humor in the film.
When Hans approaches the sign that says blast area, caution, and you're like, ooh, what's going to happen? And he takes the sign and just chucks it in the woods. That made me laugh.
Yeah, yeah. It's most of the stuff with Hans, really. That's the funny stuff in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
There's a moment, like there's a scene in a lot of movies where like you go into somebody's like trailer, like a dark room, and they've done a lot of research on something and have like news articles all over the place. There's a similar scene in this movie where that's kind of funny, and like there was an incident where like a troll, like it bumped its head on a bridge and like caused like all this devastation, and like there's a moment like that with the news article in this movie that's pretty funny.
Yeah. Next time on Camp Kaiju, Matt, what are we talking about?
At midnight, I'll take your soul.
Whoa. Careful.
And also, the next movie we're talking about... No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's the next one. From Brazil from 1966, I think.
Can't wait. Can't wait. If it's anything like the last movie I'd never heard of, Alucarda, I'm in for a treat.
Yeah, I think you are, yeah. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'm excited too.
Okay, and we'll have Frank back, so, we'll get up to some mischief there. Well, friends, troll hunters, Norwegians, let us know what you think about this movie. Please rate and review Camp Kaiju and follow us on patreon.com/Camp Kaiju for additional videos, reviews, merchandise, and more. Other ways to get in touch, campkaiju@gmail.com, campkaijupodcast.com, Instagram, and our voicemail number, 612-470-2612. Camp Kaiju is recorded in Minneapolis, St. Paul with Mimi's Mailbox by Ben Cook Phelps. Thanks, friends, and until next time, stay campy. Camp Kaiju is brought to you by Zach Linder and the Zach Pack, powered by Coldwell Banker Realty. Whether you're looking for your dream home, a savvy investment property, or expert guidance in home rehab and flipping, the Zach Pack has you covered. Check the link in the show notes for more information.
Yes, they're the ones, I'm sure.
Come on, anybody else go to?
Oh, come on, it's back. Yes, that's
Back right away.
That's
Clear off. Come on, come on, move along.
Clear off, come on. This one. Come on. Oh, this one. Come on. Put him in the van. Get a blanket over there once you go. Come on, back. Go right back. Come on. Come on, come on.
That's an offensive weapon, that is.
Come on, back with them two. Back, right, come on. All right, Sonny, that's enough. Just pack that in.